Hi there. Today we will be discussing the effects of inflammation on the engineering industry. This is by Syed, Khoo Ming Ren, Isaac, and Youssaf. Firstly, we're going to explain what inflation is. Inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services rises in comparison to the purchasing power of the currency, which generally drops during a period of inflation. The effect of inflation can be positive and negative depending on the situation and how the company handles it. There are two main types of inflation. First is mild inflation, which can be divided into creeping, crawling, walking inflation, and generally has an inflation rate of under 5% per year, and hyperinflation, which is a much more rapid rate of inflation at 10% or more per year. The effect of inflation on the engineering industry in general is as follows. A minor increase in raw material could result in expanded total cost or budget of a project. Loss of jobs due to high budget costs, high budget cuts, or upkeep of supply can be seen. Reduced purchasing power resulting in a drop in market demand uh, can also be an effect. Maintenance of machinery becomes more difficult, and the overall decrease in production rate due to the low demand in the market can also be incurred by the. The effect of inflation is divided into procurement, operation maintenance, inventory, and manufacturing. In procurement, we have two segments. Firstly is purchasing. This can be divided into both external and internal factors. The first factor is an outside factor, which is the cost of obtaining cash to stock the inventory. This fluctuates with the economy. As the higher the inflation is, there'll be an increase in costs and increase in prices for the inventory. This means that purchasing can be lower and much harder to achieve the desired targets. The tax benefits, on the other hand, will be internal factors, which dependably come to thought during the end of year government tax returns, i.e., the higher purchasing, the more tax that the company will have to incur as well. Other budgetary variables that can influence inventory administration choices incorporate the cost of stockroom operations and transportation costs. For example, the cost of gas is an outer factor, whereas the decision to buy our own trucks or use temporary workers can be an internal factor. The procurement process is as follows. Firstly, we have requisitions, where the company is required to buy a certain product or a certain item for the inventory, then go to purchase orders, and then we receive the item itself. This is followed by the payment to the supplier, and then the supplier's performance is then related to the product and the product that is given and the quality of that product. Then it is followed by the supplier management, negotiation and awards, and then the catalog contact management. Operation and maintenance will be divided into mild inflation and hyperinflation. For mild inflation, we can see an increase in production for higher sales to balance the slight increase in inventory and production. This can also another way of helping to counter mild inflation is increasing the efficiency by streamlining the production process, eliminating any friction that can be found within the production process itself will help to increase the rate of output. Streamlining communication between the departments is also one of these things that can be done to ensure that production moves smoothly. An increase in the price of the product could also help with bringing more money into the company itself. Hyperinflation, on the other hand, is a more serious affair where downsizing of the staff can be seen in many companies, especially smaller companies, temporarily ceasing production on certain plants to reduce maintenance costs and reduce operation costs. in those certain plants will be seen too. And the sales of less used and older machinery the will be done by the company itself. Next, we move on to inventory. The effects of inflation on inventory as follows. The ITOR, or the inventory turnover ratio, reveals how effective products in the inventory are sold and stored in the business. The two types of inventory turnover ratio are increased ITOR and decreased ITOR. Increased ITOR is where customers expect an inflation to occur or to continue, and they run into stores and try to buy more products. This can temporarily increase prices due to inflation, and that means that some stores may not be able to raise the prices high enough or fast enough to counteract the fact that the demand has increased so much. And increased ITOR on the other hand, decreased ITOR on the other hand, is where the business anticipates inflation. This is a benefit to the company, as it will be able to beef up its inventory while the prices are low, countering the fact that customers will be coming in to buy a large amount of stock prior to the inflation or while inflation is happening at the time. This allows them to increase its profit margin, and by buying a large amount of stock, keeping ordering costs low, and selling at high costs. Finally, we've got manufacturing. The effects of inflation on manufacturing are follows. We have worsening profit, and more severely, we have an increase in procurement costs, transport costs, personnel costs, fuel costs, and utility costs. Personnel costs can be incurred by some companies, but generally the personnel costs tend to stay the same, where the minimum wage or the wage that is offered will remain stagnant, while the increase in other costs, the external factors, happens. There will also be a surge in crude oil prices and raw materials, which means that the company will have to battle this by reducing costs elsewhere. The countermeasures for this are reconsidering suppliers of raw materials and procurement content. Maybe going for a cheaper supplier of the raw materials will be better, and what items they need to buy or need to purchase can be reconsidered. In keeping the procurement costs low, we can have a priority list that is created where the company will focus on the items that are most needed for profit to be made, and the items that have the greatest impact on the profits itself. A raised price for the products that are being sold will also be a good countermeasure that would help to balance the inflation. And promoting greater efficiency in production will help with cost cutting too. In conclusion, we can say that inflation can make or break a company. If the company does not react to inflation in the right way, for example, by doing increasing inventory turnover ratio, they could make a loss, as more customers will come in while the price is low to buy as many things as they can before the company can even react to the customers' quick movements. Whereas if they were to do a decreasing inventory turnover ratio, the company would be able to stay ahead of the game and stay ahead of the customer while buying cheap and selling at a little bit higher while the market demand is still there. An economic bubble, on the other hand, is where an asset is at a certain price strongly exceeds that asset's intrinsic value, which means that the sale value of that item is a lot higher than what the purchasing power is. This could be detrimental to a company, as if the company does not react and make the necessary changes to keep their costs low, they could lose all the customer demand that they have, losing out to their competitors. Thank you for listening to our presentation. It has been wonderful.